Good morning from Marrakech. We're here at GITEX Africa 2024. I'm here together with Lacina Koné, CEO of Smart Africa. Good morning, Lacina. Nice to meet you again.
Good morning, Kim. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. It's always a pleasure. With GITEX Africa 2024, bringing together the ICT industry under one roof, what is your take on the GITEX?
It's quite interesting because you can see that all the stakeholders are actually present at the GITEX, which is something that we really want. It is not only a public sector driven, it's actually public and private sector driven. It's not only private sector on our continent, there's also international private sector, Europeans, Middle Eastern, Asians. It's quite impressive. On the top of that, it actually rallied a lot of startups coming from all parts of Africa, from the west, from the east, from the central, from the south, which is a very nice gathering in terms of technology and in terms of also networking, as well as the venture capitalists are also around.
So would you say that's a fruitful evolution of such an event to finally bring together public and private sector?
Absolutely, absolutely. This is actually what we need. As I always said, any economy will only grow with the high participation of the private sector. The government should be there, of course, to be creating a conducive environment. So having an event, a gathering where we have the public sector as well as the private sector, as well as a different sideline meeting that we have with the public sector is actually a remarkable event.
So since bringing together public and private sector lies in your DNA of Smart Africa,
Absolutely.
so you can be quite optimistic about such an event.
Absolutely, absolutely, because that's exactly our DNA. It's actually a multi-stakeholder approach by bringing a public sector, which are the head of the state, the ministers, the regulators, the agencies, as well as the private sector that we have, who are members of Smart Africa. Here we do have a private sector member. Also, we have also private sector who are non-members. It's also an opportunity for us to discuss with them.
Okay, thank you. So here in Marrakech, we're actually witnessing the ongoing digital revolution. So what do you see is one of the main challenges when we look at digital transformation?
It's a very interesting question, but as I said, if you look at the digital transformations as a paradigm, and you see all this innovation coming up, AI, metaverse, and so on and so forth, the common denominator challenge that I see, it again boils down to agile regulation. Regulation still, for me, the number one challenge. Why? Because regulation should be made should be enabler for innovation. It's not other way around. Not regulation for regulation. We talked about that before. As long as you have agile policy, agile regulation in place, you will be able to accommodate any potential or any upcoming or any future emerging technology coming into the sphere, into the paradigm of the digital transformation.
Okay.
So again, whether you want to talk about the connectivity, it's about regulation. Whether you want to talk about innovation, it's about regulation. Whether you want to talk about transformation, it's about regulation. Whether you want to talk about acceleration, it's about regulation.
So it's all about the political will at the end of
Political will. Where there is a will, there must be a way.
All right. Health tech and digital health are major topics at this show here in Marrakech. Can you tell us about Smart Africa's digital health blueprint you recently soft launched here at GITEX?
Absolutely. It's very important to understand what's health tech. Health tech itself is a sector. If you look at the digital transformation as a long train, the health tech is one of the wagon. It's a vertical sector that goes into it. Then what's our approach continentally to the health tech is very important. That's why we, together with the Republic of Rwanda, who selected the health tech as their second blueprint, or the third, I believe, because they did the e-commerce as well. So we are looking at it nationally and cross-border. What are we looking for in that blueprint? We're looking at the governance of health tech, operationalization of the health tech. We're looking at the workforce capacitations in the health tech, and we're looking at the standard. Coming to the standard, we want to make sure we are not striving in an island. We are actually interconnected to other nations, other continents as well. When it comes to the governance, how the health tech should be governed amid the existing situation with the healthcare. You know, the healthcare is one of the biggest challenges also in Africa when we talk in terms of vertical. How should it be governed? How a country should look at this health tech as an ecosystem, hospital, clinic, insurance, and also citizen. Operationalizations, the only way for us to leapfrog is to do things differently. It means to bring innovation into the operation. Innovation in terms of creation of the different platform, how the different platform of different hospitals, how different insurance company can interoperate. So we must have a national platform for operationalization. And health tech worker, they need to be, of course, upskill or reskill in terms of embracing this technology. And the last thing is the standard, of course, to make sure the standard are interoperable in Africa and also are compliant, also conform with the international standard. But on the top of that, something very interesting. How do we deal with the health tech when we go to cross-border? Very interesting. I'll give you an example. For example, you live in South Africa. You have a medical insurance in South Africa, private medical insurance. Then you cross the border, you go to Zimbabwe. The same company exists in Zimbabwe. How do we make sure these two interoperate without you having to give again your information from the start? So we go into a single source of truth by piggybacking the health tech on the Smart Africa Trust Alliance platform, which is the digital ID interoperable. That's how many vectors, such as health tech, such as commerce, such as trade, can ride on the digital ID and interoperability platform.
Okay, very interesting. I had a conversation here yesterday with a company. They're managing a very simple task in Ethiopia when we talk about health tech. They manage for clinics the appointment management because it is a hassle for people queuing long in a line. Probably someone who has a real emergency is behind someone who has probably only a flu or a cough. So can you give us some samples? You talked earlier about it, that healthcare is a very difficult topic in Africa. Can you give us some samples where it exactly can help to bring on technology?
Interesting questions, interesting enough. If you look at the digital economy or digital transformation, it is, if you take it as a vertical, it is the only vertical that allow you to have infrastructure in the area which are very remote where you don't even have to be. Think about it. Healthcare in the rural area. Traditionally, we need to have clinics and hospital infrastructure everywhere. Sometimes you can see that by the ratio of the population per doctor. In Niger, for example, you have 20,000 people per one doctor. In Côte d'Ivoire, Ivory Coast, you have like close to 6,000 to 7,000 people per one doctor. How the healthcare services can reach those areas without having a physical bricks and mortar infrastructure? That is the technology. Now, what will really help us a lot, it is the AI, the artificial intelligence. It basically means the basic services of the healthcare, triage, the primary medical assistance, before you even get to a serious diseases diagnosis. I think the consumer experience and the consumer interface with the AI is going to help a lot the penetrations of the health tech in those areas.
All right, thank you. So that was quite interesting. So we just covered the impact of AI on digital health or health tech. So where would you see can AI impact on digital transformation? Because AI is a very big buzzword, but not everyone knows what it actually means. If you ask probably here probably a lot of people see it more from an enterprise perspective, but if you go out to the public, probably 80% of them will tell you, okay, it's ChatGPT. But how can AI impact digital transformation in Africa?
That's a very good question. It's the AI is the beast. But I would like to remind you one thing. What the technology and manufacturing was able to do to the blue collar, that's what the AI will do to the white collar industry. If you see the analogy, they said, you know, the AI is going to take away already. No, what job? It's not a blue collar job. That's already taken by automation. The white collar job, you mentioned, for example, ChatGPT. ChatGPT is only the tip of the iceberg. How an individual, a citizen, or a customer can interact with the AI. Now, how the AI is going to impact digital transformation. If you have a citizen-centric approach for services, where you have a citizen in the middle, he either receives a public service or he receives a private service. Today, we have a huge digital gap, I call it digital divide, where the government services which are already taken into digital platform, there are certain set of populations that the service cannot reach. For a simple reason, they do not speak the language of the technology.
Yeah.
But again, the digital transformation is not about teaching people English or French or German or Spanish. How the digital transformation with the help of the AI can help to bring these people on board to the service so that they can be also accounted for. I like to give this analogy. 30-something years ago, they came out in North America or even Europe, something called Disability Act. You know what does that mean? It means people who were in a wheelchair, they should be given the ability to enter any building, any bathroom, any elevator. You saw what I'm talking about. Because at that time, different governments wanted to bring the service, wanted to make everything inclusive without any segregation. Look at the analogy. The e-gov services are available today in the country, but certain people are completely excluded because they don't know how to read, how to write.
Yeah.
How do we allow, I don't want to make advertising for ChatGPT 4.0, which is like a more human you talk to in terms of services. How do you allow these people to interact with the digital platform using their own native language? That is a huge jump. That's what we believe. It's only tip of the iceberg when we talk about a chatbot. But of course, we understand that the AI will impact the healthcare, it will impact even the efficiency within the government, efficiency within the private sector, efficiency within your own day-to-day life. But this is just one example. If we want to look for a social impact, how the AI will be able to transform our societies.
So we could say that AI is actually the natural evolution of technology, if you say it. Because we always had that. If you look back in history, we always had big jumps. I mean, no one would have said 20 years ago we're running around with an iPhone on airport, for example.
Yes. Yeah. But you have to look at it in a very philosophical way, I'll tell you. The AI within itself, if you look at the sector, verticals, it can be a revolution, the way it processes information, huge amount of data. But if you look at the entire landscape, the entire part of digital transformation is an evolution. How do we include other people? But again, when you look at the AI is fed from data, big data.
Data we once created.
Data has to be created. To create the data, you need a digital transformation to create it. What does that actually mean? It means the government needs to go online, the private sector needs to go online. So that is, in that sense, it's an evolution, but within its own vertical, it's a big revolution.
Okay, thank you. Smart Africa plays a vital role in uniting the public and private sector. We talked earlier about it. It's actually your DNA. So what is your vision and the need for an African single market? And how you try to achieve this with Smart Africa?
When you hear digital single, transform Africa into a single digital market, it means the markets are interconnected. The market will never be interconnected if there's no unique identification nationally, and those identifications have to be interoperable. Because you want an investor to look at Africa not through just the eye of Kenya or the eye of Nigeria or the eye of South Africa. You want the private sector to look as a whole 1.4 billion. It means that the national idea have to be at least interoperable. That is really the key. Once you have that, the private sector will ride on. It basically means you as a private sector, you come and invest in South Africa, based on the only one principle, we call it TOOP. The only one principle, it means you get your information once into the system and you don't repeat it twice. That will lead you to a single source of truth. So with the private sector in South Africa, you can just ride on those platforms. You go to Zimbabwe, you go to Malawi, you go to Zambia, it is still the same private sector. It means that private sector can grow a business beyond the borders of South Africa. Same can apply also to private sector. ID authentication, ID verification check. So which will lead us, of course, we talked about it previously, into a continental eKYC.
I mean, I would say we have no problem in terms of technology from a private sector perspective.
Yes.
So what role plays policy harmonization in that?
Very, very crucial, very important. All what I just described to you, it cannot be done without a policy harmonization. Because the laws in each different country, we talk about a continent which has over 50 countries, over 50 regulatory systems. Even within the country itself, there are different codes, telecom code, cybersecurity code, data protection code, digital signature code, so many different. You're talking, we cannot do anything without a proper policy harmonization. And that's what also Smart Africa embarked, because Smart Africa itself is the catalyst, the accelerator for the digital transformation. You cannot accelerate if you don't try to understand what's the common denominator between these countries and what are the rules and the regulatory environment that can create a conducive environment for Africa as a whole. We have to come to an agreement to that. Although the sovereignty will be left to the countries, but the basic common denominator that can attract an investor is very important to have an agreement on harmonizing those policies.
Do you see any improvement, or do you have an example where you say, look, that's what we achieved so far?
Absolutely, I see a lot of improvement in terms of, if you look at the connectivity side, the laws of the connectivity, not only that, if you know about the free roaming project that we have, One Africa Network area, which basically roam like a home when you're in Africa, it's already happening, for example, in East Africa on the eastern and on the northern corridor, which is Rwanda, Uganda, Kenya for the time being. You can roam today if you're flying from, say, Kigali to Uganda. Once to land, you get a message say your calls are local calls. This wouldn't happen without a proper harmonization of laws. Yeah. This is just one example. Now we're about to embark, for example, in a pilot project for a Smart Africa Trust Alliance that we call SADC, Smart Africa Data Exchange Platform. We have 12 countries today who signed up for the declaration, and the pilot is going to be happening between Benin, Togo, Ghana, and Senegal. That's also about policy harmonization of identification in those countries, and digital identification, and to see exactly what do we agree on in exchange between those countries.
Yes, thank you. So we can be excited for that next year.
It's a very exciting moment.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for having me.
That was Tech Africa News from GITEX 2024. You can find more on techafricanews.com.